All right, welcome back everyone to George James and Associates Research Tools channel. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I've already started doing this a little bit on my second dissertation data set, quantitative data set that I collected. And I used cloud research prime panels to collect the data. I wrote the survey, as you can see here on the screen, in Qualtrics. And so today what I'm going to start doing is cleaning up the data set to make it regression ready. And so here you have, we have in the NCU dissertation quant, that's the name of my study that I put in Qualtrics. And I could easily do a video on each one of these. The first page, of course, is going to be your consent letter. Anytime you're working with or underneath an IRB to have something published because you're dealing with human subjects, they're going to make you put this in the very beginning. So they're usually going to have their formula, so you just use that. For sure, your doctoral institution is going to have one. So if you're wherever you wind up working, if they don't have a formulaic, a boilerplate consent letter, you can just use the one from your doctoral program. And the worst thing they're going to say is that you need to make changes to it, and then you do that, and then that becomes your new template. So, all right. So what I want to do is I want to go through the questionnaire really quickly before we dive into the data set, because I know the data set, but you all don't because you didn't write the study, so which is obvious. All right, so first question. So which in the following industries do you currently work? So I want to know which industry they're in. That's my first question. So I have accounting, management, information, IT, financial services, construction, and then I don't work in any of these industries, right? So this is kind of like going to be your other, and then I'm unemployed. So second one, which is the following service categories, right? So financial accounting, managerial accounting, finance, bookkeeping, consulting, or other. Right. And so these lists I got from LinkedIn, actually, because I was going to do also a qualitative portion of the study. It was going to be mixed methods, but I couldn't get the data for qualitative. And so people were not really compliant like they were in the quantitative section, which is fine. So I kept the LinkedIn lists of industry and service category. And so I just used those. All right. Which year were you born? That's pretty easy. Gender, race, here's a list of races, and then ethnicity, right? Hispanic or not, etc. Marital status, and then how many years, I just put a slider in here. How many years of formal education do you have? Annual income. And then here in with question 15, this is what really starts the study. So basically what's going on is I give them a mission statement of the company. I say, okay, look, you're a worker in a company, and here's the mission and vision and the values, right? Which includes honesty and integrity and things like that, right? And so I just give a brief background and the business model, and I say, okay, there's a department-wide competition, and so the employee who logs the most revenue into the ledger within a set period of time will receive a 15% bonus to their monthly salary. So on the next day, you're going to have several days worth of accounts receivable, and you can use a calculator. And so when you wish to start, simply click on, and yeah, they click this to start, and it takes them to this page. And so the timer, the 5 minutes starts. And what I did is I put in almost an impossible task. So I gave them all these long numbers here, and I said, you have 5 minutes, and I did this 10 times. And I said, you have 5 minutes to manually add all these up, which is really difficult to do. So these were just randomly generated, and I do have the totals. I did do them. I have the totals off screen that I can go consult. But I just did this 10 times, as you can see. They're just 10 random numbers, randomly generated numbers in Excel between certain ranges. And then once they're done doing all that, then they do the exact same thing, except they're a manager this time. They're a manager. So who can log the most revenue into the ledger? Each worker has been paired with a manager. So now they're a manager. And not only does the worker receive 15% bonus to salary, the manager also receives 10% bonus to their annual, not just for a month, but for the whole year. And so the following contains your workers' total from the 10 days. So you're supposed to check the accuracy of the workers. So here are the numbers. Here's the daily total that the worker did. Is it correct or not? And that's the manager's job. So they're supposed to manually add these up, compare that number with this number, and some of them are wrong and some of them are right. So that's the manager's job. So that's kind of a check. I wanted to make to see what they did as a worker and then as a manager. All right, so then I say, all right, thank you for participating in this experiment. And here, because when you're studying fraud, which is what I'm doing, you have to use deception for your subjects, which requires even more IRB red tape, which is fine. Because you can't tell someone, hey, I'm studying in right now in this study, I'm studying to see if you're going to commit fraud or not. You can't say that in the consent letter. So you have to make something else up. In my consent letter, I said, oh yeah, I'm conducting a research study to study the team dynamics between workers and managers. Yeah, I'm not studying that. I'm studying fraud. So I tell them this because it sounds good, but I'm using deception, and you have to when you're studying fraud if you're gonna interface directly with research subjects. So what I then did is you basically you have to come clean at the very end. Thank you for participating. This is really about fraud in the corporate setting. This is the title of my dissertation, right? This is why I used deception on you, right? This is why I deceived you. Thank you again. And then one thing that I learned in my first doctoral program that's really good and it looks good to IRB and it's probably increases your chances of being approved earlier on without tons and tons of revisions is whatever it is that you're studying, it's great if you put victim resources for that. So here, there's a lot of fraud victim resources, so I just put this in here. Even though I was seeing whether or not they would perpetuate fraud, it's still nice to put this in here. It's some goodwill. It looks good to IRB panels and so on. So there's really no reason not to do this. Is I guess what I'm saying. All right, so that's a list of questions, and in the next part of this mini video series, I'm going to immediately go to the data.